Welcome to episode 32 of the A-Travel Talk Show, a product of the A-Tourism Marketing Group, broadcasting live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard from our base camp in beautiful Maple Leaf, Canada. A-Tourism Marketing Group is focused on delivering experiences that grow small and rural Canada capital, while creating shared economic values and experience for communities, locals, and visitors. And so, welcome everyone to the big show. And what a show we have today, Colin. It's historical, it's cultural, and it's filled with surprises. Are you pretty stoked about the show there, Junior?
I am. I mean, the discussion we had earlier was very intriguing, and this guy's a world traveler, and the things you learn and lessons you can teach. And as you said, we are live.
Yes, we are. We have Mr. History with us today. Yes, we do. Yes. I have a very proud and very happy to invite for the show. He's a newbie, so we got to be gentle with him. So hopefully we can bring him on as a regular later down the road. We're going to be gentle because he knows this is a tough show. This is tough questions. We ask tough questions here. So we'd like to welcome to the show President and CEO of the World Tourism Association for Culture and Heritage, Mr. Chris Flynn, will be our special guest. Chris will be sharing his passions, his observations, his expertise, and his opinions about historical and cultural tourism. And I don't think in all our research, Colin, we could have asked for a better guest than Mr. History himself, Chris Flynn.
It's truly an honor to have Chris join us on the show. And like I say, it's going to be a good show.
Yep. As always, we'll have our regular feature before we bring Chris on is A Week in Tourism, and that would be spelt. Let me just throw that up on the screen for all you newbies tuning in. A Week in Tourism. We discussed a little bit brief about tourism, what's happening in Canada here in our tourism industry, and we will be sharing that with you. And in honor of Mr. History, we have put up a globe and a little historical icon in the bottom corner of our screen. So we are going all history today because we do have Mr. History with us, Chris Flynn. The last and not least, our third part and how we will end the show. Make sure you stick around for this. It is so huge. We are blown away. We just received, Junior, a letter of confirmation that we have been granted the exclusive rights in Canada to interview the most prolific and the most famous world traveler on the planet. No one has visited as many places or put on as many kilometers as this family, and we're honored that we were going to have exclusive rights here in Canada to have him on our show, and that's the big surprise at the end of the show. But first, as always, because this is high budget, multi-billion-dollar production, we have to appease the bosses upstairs, so we're going to do some housekeeping. So you should all know the Travel Talk Show is being recorded live. Yes, live, meaning things happen. Deal with it. We do. You can deal with it. We'll be back. Don't leave when things do go.
It does happen.
It does happen. The edited version will be available tomorrow on our award-winning ehCanadaTravel website. As you know, that's spelled ehCanadaTravel.com. It also will be on our social media feeds, including Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, Tumblr, YouTube, and on LinkedIn. We will be sharing it. At the end of every month, we also will be featuring all our guests on our top awarded blog, which was just ranked 23rd out of the top 1,000 global travel bloggers in the world by Global Rise. Our blog is called Two Brothers, 2 Feet, Too Curious, Too Canadian. Please share. We will also be featuring our speakers on that blog. My name is Greg Girard. I'm half of the Brothers of Tourism, obviously not the better looking half. I am your co-host at the A-Travel Talk Show. I'm the co-founder of ehCanadaTravel.com. I'm also a 23rd ranked blogger, as we discussed. And my big passion is small and rural Canada tourism. And if you have been watching the show, you all know why. So next door to me is Mr. Junior Colin Girard. Why don't you give him a little spiel there, Junior?
Well, I am the other half of ehCanadaTravel.com, the co-host of A-Travel Talk Show. And there's a lot of co's and partnerships going on here. We make a very good team there, bro.
Yes. And what's your title?
Oh, I was about to say I'm the keeper of the code.
I love that title. I think that title rocks. I really do. Keeper
Keeper
of
of
the
the
code.
code.
Yes.
Yes, I'm the tech of the company and keep everything right in the background.
Yep.
Thank you, everybody, for showing up and here live or watching us on the recorded video tomorrow.
Yes. And for all of you misspellers out there, I just put up our name online so you could spell it right when you send us all those wonderful positive emails. And to the ones that like to hack us, then don't bother sending us anything because we don't want to hear from you. So that's pretty much how we operate here. We like good people. We hang out with good people and we want to learn from good people. So good people are always welcome to tune in on this show. So before we bring on our guest, Mr. History Chris Flynn, I'm going to talk a little bit about Canadian history. We aren't the old kids on the block when it comes to Canadian history. We are actually the young kids on the block, and our history is documented a lot more at a certain point in our time than it is in the previous points. I'm talking Indigenous peoples of Canada. That history has not been shared readily, or has it been documented as well. People should know that the Canadian history starts with the Indigenous peoples of Canada, the First Nations people of Canada, because they occupied and they were here Canada for thousands of years before any of us showed up. And they first arrived on our shores on the eastern shore, as we are told. And we are learning more and more as time passes by. So our history starts with the first people of Canada, and all respect to them. We showed up in about the 10th century is where it really starts to pick up in the various versions of our history. That's when the Norse explorers and settlers moving ever westward from Scandinavia, Iceland, and Greenland. Eventually what happened is they found the northern shores of Newfoundland. And that is where our first UNESCO heritage site is founded. Is a little village that has been well preserved of the Norse, or as others will call them, Vikings, and it's called Leon's Oz Meadows, and it's beautiful. Me and you, Junior, got to play Viking when we went there. We actually got to dress up. We got to wear the Viking gear. We had a sword fight, and I won, right?
No, yeah, that was debatable for sure. I know I walked out with a bit of a scar here and there, but yeah, that was an amazing adventure. Leon's is the
that's
a great place to visit when you go to Newfoundland.
That's our Western Canada French.
Yeah, we got pictures wearing our Viking helmets, and the Viking huts were just amazing.
Yep, it was very cool. And you know what I even like more about is the journey getting there, because it's in the middle of nowheres. And then the nice surprise when we did get there was all the hiking trails that were covering through the grassland and the wetland and all the boardwalk that went there. Great for bird watching. I don't think they pushed that enough, because there were a ton of the flocked species out at that heritage site, right? It was not until 1497 when Jean Cabot makes landfall, claiming the land for England. So he shows up and he says, this is our land, England. The precise location of Cabot's landing is widely debated, but generally to believe on Newfoundland by Cape Spear. Do you remember, Cole, when we went there, we saw that big statue in the middle of nowhere, and we said, what the heck is that statue doing? They were actually marking where they perceived the landfall was by Jean Cabot, which was, I would say, about 20 kilometers south of Cape Spear. It would be a guesstimate. So again, if I'm wrong, I'm sure we will be corrected. 1534, 1542, Jacques Cartier made 3 voyages across the Atlantic, claiming the land for the King Francis of France. You see the problem here? We got England taking a chunk. We got France coming over, taking a chunk. Cartier heard First Nations people speaking the Iroquois word Canada. And let me put that up on screen just for you people, how they spelt that, because it ain't the way it's going out now. That's how they came at Canada. And in the Iroquois language, that means village. By the 1550s, the name of Canada began spelt how it is spelt now, was starting to show up on all these different type of maps. So it wasn't, so because of this, we have these 2 powerful nations, and us Canadians at the time, the First Nations people. During the 18th century, pretty much in our history, if you look from date to date to date, all you saw through the 18th century was a lot of forts being built and a lot of wars happening. between the French and the
Yep.
English. So, you know, you've got all the plains out in Quebec, that massive, massive field there that they honor in the war. There's so much heritage history in our short life, but that 18th century, that's full of war between France and England fighting over our country. Canada became a country called Dominion of Canada in 1867. So it was relatively, when you look at all where Chris Flynn is going to be talking, those are long before we became a country. But again, caveat here is the First Nations people were here a long time before, and in their eyes, this was already a country. We just decided to put a label on it. So we got to make sure we mention that. Canada right now, if we look at where we are, we have 970 National Historic Sites. Of 171 of these are managed by the Parks Canada system. Most of the big boys are Parks Canada. Some of them are run by the national and provincial governments, but most are Parks Canada because they're considered heritage sites, and that's pretty much where tourism and culture, they're the ones taking care of it. And we sort of talked about this in the pre-show. They got a lot of things they're taking care of and probably not giving the attention it may deserve on other areas. Canada is a young country, but we still have 18 UNESCO World Heritage Sites. The first one we've already talked about, and we're going to mention 4 or 5 here that we have visited that we really enjoy. The Lyons Meadows, that was one. We've already covered that. Another one was Dinosaur Provincial Park in Alberta. This park is pretty cool. Hiking trails throughout all these famous and extensive fossil fields in the world. It supposedly has the most fossil fields in the world for dinosaur finds. In fact, 35 species of dinosaur, Colin, have been found in this park, dating back to 75 million years ago. So this park, I thought it was pretty cool when me and you were wandering around there, checking it all out. A more modern day UNESCO World Heritage Site. Unfortunately, we had to part ways when we were crossing this part of the countries on the last trip. But Quebec City, I will say to this day in this country, if you're looking at anything that has been civilized in our country, and you want a little bit of taste of history, Quebec City is really cool because they have what's called the only walled fortress left in North America, and it's 14 kilometers long, and it basically surrounds all of old Quebec. And you can walk this wall, and that's the cool thing. You walk it, and you're going by all the heritage sites, and you're walking it to see the cannons and all the different forts and everything. So this is really cool, and it's cool when you're walking it near the city because you look down and you got the patios and the stores, everyone living their lives, and then there's us tourists that are going, "Holy cool! This is so cool! I've never done this before." Right? So we're pretty excited. Yeah. The Halifax Citadel. Got to mention that, because it is Canada's most visited national historic site, is the Halifax Citadel, the middle of the big hill in the middle of Halifax, that little dome you're seeing, that's actually a fort. And it's sort of half underground, half not. And it's pretty cool because you walk in and then it opens up. And then, of course, you've got all the actors living the part. And I believe that's the one where you can actually become a soldier for a day and participate in the changing of the guard.
Wow, that's cool.
Yep.
Yeah, Halifax was a beautiful city.
It is. And then there's an instance, the Haida Gwaii Islands. And it's funny we bring that up, Col, because we talked about it earlier. And I have it here in my notes. And I know you guys probably think, oh, Greg's just showing off. But I actually have it in my notes, the Haida Gwaii Islands, as one of our...
You're still showing off, though.
Wow, okay.
Oh, it's been a great history lesson.
Well,
I'm learning.
You know what happens? Us Canadians, we're trying to up our humble level, right? We're trying to be a bit more tough opposed to this humble look, I guess.
Well, you teach your younger brother new things
all the time. That's why I'm older.
Yeah, 3 years makes a huge amount of wiseness.
Haida Gwaii Islands, British Columbia. They call it, and this is something I don't know even if our friend Mr. History knows, but they're called ninstits, Ninstits. And what they are, they're village sites that features the largest collection of Haida totem poles in their original location. So we talked about that, about the Guahiwas park there, and the ninstits is what they call the villages that are still standing with those Haida totem poles. And again, we might be covering that. But again, I think this little history lesson on the A Travel Talk Show, All of this information can be found on the ehCanadaTravel.com website, 18,000 pages of beautiful Canada bliss. A lot of it is boots on the ground. All of it is us. Very short. We have contributors, but to get a head start on this Canada game, Junior and I went and researched. Took 10 years to research this whole country, and now we've got it on paper. Enjoy. 16,000 photos and videos to kick in. A lot of them of me and none of Colin, because I wouldn't post them.
Well, I got a few. I slipped a few in there. You haven't looked lately.
That's it. So that's a great segue for introducing our next guest. Joking aside, very serious topic, very influential person, and a very quality good person. Is President and CEO of the World Tourism Association for Culture and Heritage, Mr. Chris Flynn. I'm going to give you a little bit of a nutball look at Chris's resume here, and I'd love to tell you it all, but I'm going to hit some highlights, and Chris is going to fill us in on the blanks. Chris is 34 years of experience in international tourism, working in a wide range of countries across 4 continents. He's often requested to speak at high-profile conferences and events and or private insights to leading news media channels such as BBC World News Asia Business Report. Chris's wheelhouse is Asia Pacific, but as we talked to him earlier, it goes way beyond those borders. Chris' intimate knowledge of the industry and the requirements needed to identify critical trends that have potentially influenced development and expansion. So a lot of people, organizations pull Chris in for his knowledge when they ask for it. And he has been a player in helping to develop some of the systems we see today. He's also a board member, and I had to throw this in because I know our friend Jed Brown will be watching, and I got to plug the little boy. Don't want any nasty messages from Mr. Brown. Yeah. Board member and strategic advisor of Low Season Traveler, Chris Flynn is. So he hangs out with our friend Jed Brown every once in a while. And as we found out earlier from our other friend overseas, Caroline Childs, Chris and Caroline, you grew up on the same street and didn't even know it.
Isn't that weird, eh?
Isn't that wild? How small is the world today?
Yeah.
Right?
That's
the other
huge.
thing he's got down, and I'm hoping, probably not going to have time, but I'm gonna hit him up one day on this one, is this Director of Tourism Talent organizations he started up. I think it said it was about 2 years old. And what it's, and I sort of liked his premise here, is tourism talent is passionate about, he wants to change tourism's perception as a career, which is true, and changing how the industry recruits and remains silent. And I thought it was pretty powerful how he worded this new venture that he is on. Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. Don't you, Col?
Yeah, I'm interested in hearing about it.
Yep. So I'm out of notes here, so I guess we're going to have to bring Mr. History on the show, Mr. Chris Flynn, President and CEO of, he's going to fill in the blanks here. I don't want to say everything about this guy. I mean, what's he going to say? He's going to be speechless for an hour.
He could be our guest host.
Yeah. So welcome to the show.
Hi. That was a great introduction. I'm speechless. I have nothing to give.
I don't believe you.
You've cleared me out totally, you know?
Yeah.
You're just cultural heritage tourism geeks, aren't you?
Oh, yeah. That's it. No, I think the word, Chris, is we're wannabes.
Ah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
me too.
We can't know. You set the bar. We're just trying to get close.
Okay. I'll take that one.
There you go.
Yeah. We're apprenticing.
Yes, we're apprenticing under the great Mr. History, Chris Flynn.
Yes.
Chris, first of all, I'd like to welcome you to the show and thank you for taking this time to meet with Canada and our audience tonight and our audience in the next year, as we will be sharing this as much as we can and making sure it gets what it deserves. I just had a little bit of a knick-knack about who is Chris Flynn, but maybe you could fill in the blanks and tell our listeners who is Chris Flynn and the WTACH.
Sure. I'm going to go pretty way back. This is not going to be like This Is Your Life, but I think it's important. I grew up in Manchester, same city as Jed Brown, funnily enough, from Low Season Traveler. But we didn't know each other until quite some time after I'd moved to Australia. We hadn't met each other. But I grew up in the south side of Manchester on a what's called a council estate. It's a working class estate that was built by the local government after the Second World War to house local people. So as you can imagine, with it being like a working class environment, nobody traveled. Nobody was expected to travel. It was just wasn't even on the radar. So imagine my surprise one year when I was about 14 years old that I went back to school after the summer holidays and got chatting to a couple of pals. And I said, what did you do over summer? And they said, well, we went to Belgium, Austria, and Switzerland. What? I said, how'd you do that? And they said, oh, we play drums in an Irish pipe band. I said, you're kidding me. He said, no, we go to different folk festivals and cultural festivals around Europe. Nice. So fast forward 12 months, and I'm on a Alitalia DC-8 aircraft flying to Rome with my drum in the hold, having spent a year learning the damn thing, and incredibly excited as a young kid, as you can appreciate. And we arrived in Rome in the late afternoon, middle of summer, and it was incredibly exciting. So being part of a band, of course, they've got coaches outside and we have to be taken to somewhere else. So we board these coaches, and this is incredibly powerful for me because by the time we got to drive through the center of Rome, the sun was setting, and we drove around the Colosseum. And in my mind's eye, I can still see it vividly today. It was bathed in this orange light. And I'd only ever seen this in books and magazines. And there I was, this young kid driving around this thing. Anyway, the sun goes down, and we carry on driving for miles and miles. Wake up the next day, and I'm in the middle of the Apennine Mountains of Italy, in a region called L'Aquila. And the following evening, get this, young kid at school in a little council estate, never been anywhere. Yep. I had to walk down the steps of a 2,000-year-old Roman amphitheater to get to the stage through the audience, and got onto this stage and played. And it was a life-changing moment because up until then, I was studying to go and do a fine arts degree in a city called Leeds, which is north of Manchester. And I changed my mind instantly right then and said, I'm going to travel for the rest of my life. And that's what I've done. And that's what I've done. So this cultural connection has always been with me because the areas that we played and the places that we played. In fact, that particular event, I met people from Turkey, from Senegal, some people from Puerto Rico, and all these different areas that I'd never even heard of. So it was a life-changing moment. And that, I think, has always remained, well, it has always remained with me. And that was one of the seeds that was planted in terms of establishing the World Tourism Association for Culture and Heritage, or WETAC, as we call it. Mm-hmm. So in terms of WETAC, what actually happened there was I'd spent about 15 years as the director for the Pacific with PATA, Pacific Asia Travel Association, which is a great organization. And I would travel all over the world speaking at different conferences and events. And one of the things that I was known for was, doing my research, looking at future trends and recognizing what's going to influence our industry. And I also used to speak quite a bit about culture and heritage tourism simply because it wasn't necessarily on the radar. Anyway, I was invited by the Chinese government to make two presentations. And it was on culture and heritage tourism. And I kind of wondered why. I mean, their culture is incredibly rich, particularly on the western side of China. So I began to research. And what I found, what actually fell out almost immediately, was that the biggest potential influence on the culture and heritage tourism market was going to be millennials moving forward. Mm-hmm. And when we look at millennials, the number one aspiration globally, mm-hmm. both Western and Asian mentality, was their number one aspiration was to have a true, authentic cultural heritage experience. The issue was here, we were expecting about 100 million of them over a 5-year period. And there were no checks and balances in place anywhere. Yeah. No organization had done anything to even realize what was required. And I'd already seen in my own work the exploitation and the erosion of some of the culture and heritage assets, communities, people, and what have you, around the Pacific and the Mekong and various different areas. So I obviously raised this issue with a number of organizations, including my own. What can we do? This is going to be a big problem. Yep. There was very little appetite, and I don't blame them for that. It's because their focus was elsewhere. Mm-hmm. This was something that hadn't been realized before. So when I was faced with that, I came to the conclusion that, if anything was going to change, I was going to have to do it myself. So I'm not trying to look to be a hero status here, or I'm certainly not trying to be a missionary, but something had to be done. And the first thing that needed to be done was the recognition of the need to protect and preserve these cultural heritage assets, not just the fixed assets, not just the tangible assets, the bricks and mortar, but the intangible assets, the things like languages, belief systems. And what completely blew me away was the fact that there was no organization on the planet that was focused on this global issue. Yeah. So my organization, incredibly, is the only organization, global organization, focused on the protection and preservation of cultural heritage assets globally. And I have a great team, an amazing team working with me. And I have to say, we're kicking some pretty good goals right now.
Nice. That's very, 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 very nice. Chris, so if from what we're gathering on that, you have 34 years of experience in international tourism. You're working in a wide range of countries across 4 continents. You're getting your boots on the ground mentality, which is we're so keen on. You have an intimate knowledge of the industry and the requirements needed to identify critical trends. So if that's the case, what have the potential to influence tourism development and the cooperation that you do have. So what I really want to know is, what are you seeing right now for critical trends in which have the large impact on cultural and historical tourism? What are you picking up on?
Okay. I think the first thing we need to look at are the numbers. Okay. Now, if we look at UNWTO's results, for want of a better phrase, of international tourist arrivals for 2019, we saw that there was 4% year-on-year growth, and that resulted in 1.5 billion international tourist arrivals. Now, I'm not going to get into the semantics of what was projected prior to this figure, but one thing that I think as an industry we don't necessarily recognize, and it's the same for me, I'm not preaching here, but when we talk about millions and billions, they sound the same. Yeah. But of course they're not, right? Yeah. So let's do some mental arithmetic here. If I was to take 1 million seconds away from today, I'd end up with about 12 days. If I was to take 1 billion seconds away from today, I end up with 33 years.
Holy.
So when we start talking about 1.5 billion tourists, you can start to see the issue. Yeah. All right? This is over tourism kind of on steroids right now. So the other thing that UNWTO say is that 47% of all itineraries for all travelers have a cultural heritage component. So if we take those figures from 2019 and we project 47%, right now there are 740 million cultural heritage tourism visitors happening around the world. Wow. And with no checks and balances. So right up front, you can see the issue. Yep. You can see what's going to happen. Add on another 100 million millennials, which haven't gone away. They're going to come back as soon as we've got issues and answers to COVID-19. Then you can see the importance of being able to be agile, to be able to move, to be able to change the way the industry works, the way the industry operates, to actually start putting these plans and strategies and policies in place that protect these critical and unique assets. Because when we look at the homogenization of the world, the only thing that separates you and I is our culture. It's the invisible skin we wear that tells people who we are, right? Yeah. And right now, and from my own personal experience, what I've seen around the world, if we continue to allow the things that are happening, the exploitation, the erosion, and turn a blind eye like we always do as an industry, it's going to get worse. And the thing about it is, once culture is gone, it's gone. Yep. You can't plant it. You can't grow it. It's gone forever. And these things have maybe taken thousands of years to cement themselves in communities, to cement themselves in part of the history, heritage, and ancestry of countries. So to some degree, this is our plastic in the ocean. But unlike the plastic in the ocean that was first recognized in 1966, we don't have 50 years to pretend this isn't happening. Because as I say, once it's gone, it's gone. So having shows and having the opportunity to have platforms and stages to be able to share this, because I'm not blaming the industry. We didn't know. Nobody knew this. I didn't know this until I started to do my research, until I started to understand what was required in terms of building an organization like WeTech and what we stand for and what we're trying to achieve. You know, we're not looking to change the world. We're not looking to be missionaries. We're looking to make a positive difference. And if we can start the conversation, and this is part of the conversation, then it can only get better. So that's where we are. But, you know, when it comes down to those numbers, which are huge,
they're massive.
We've been conditioned as an industry over time that growth is good, that all growth is good.
Yeah.
And we know this is ridiculous. And maybe COVID-19 is going to give us a chance to take a breath and a step back and look at this, okay? But the issue again is that in conditioning our industry to focus on growth as opposed to value, then we've conditioned governments too. So the majority of government ministers, you know, they don't want to have a negative result on their watch.
Nope.
So they will go all out. And it's all about growth and growth and growth. I'm going to give you, if you go on the website, my website.
Let me put that up
there.
there.
I wrote a blog about last year sometime. And it was to do with an announcement by the tourism minister of Turkey. Again, not having a go at Turkey per se. But he was celebrating the fact that in 2018, they achieved 40 million tourist arrivals, which is a pretty big number by anyone's standards. Right?
Oh, man.
But in the same breath, in the same announcement, he made this announcement in 2019. He also added to this that he wanted to grow that to 70 million by 2023.
Incredible.
That gave 4 years. Now, what he wanted to do was he wanted to open up some of the more sensitive areas, some of the more historic archaeological territories that were, you know, currently off limits. So do you think that all the checks and balances and approvals have actually, you know, been done before that announcement? Highly doubtful. Or do you think he was trying to impress his boss? Yeah. I think I know what he was trying to do.
Yeah.
But this is symptomatic of what's going on around the world right now.
Yeah.
So we're trying to change the conversation.
Yeah.
We're trying to turn it round.
Yeah.
And we're trying to make people understand the significance of what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah. And is the core or the foundation of change, because this is basically what we're all on our part of the pond, your part of the pond. The message I'm getting is we all want change for the betterment of protection, betterment of preservation, and a more responsible approach. But is the foundation or the crux of the issue in our part of the land? I only talk about our part of the land. Is a lot of what we're hearing is a lot of these the stakeholders, the ones that have the power to make these decisions, have gone ghost during these times, and we're sort of like, where's the problem lies? Like me and you and Colin and Jed and Caroline and other guests that we've had on the show, it seems we all want the same thing, but it seems we're all running into the same roadblocks.
Yeah, I mean, to be perfectly honest, you know, a lot of the traditional leadership of our industry has been, you know, deafening in their silence.
Yep.
And it makes you wonder why.
It does.
You know, I think what's going to happen though, to some degree, is even with the research that we're doing right now, we're finding that the consumer sentiment, motivations have changed already.
Yep.
You know, in many respects, people are going to travel less, but they're going to want to experience more.
Yep.
Okay. What's happened in the past is we've sold people what we want to sell them, what we think they want, and they can only buy what we want to sell them. Okay.
Yeah.
What's actually happening now? Everyone's been sat at home for the last few months. We've all got Google and access to the internet, and people are starting to discover and explore some of the real opportunities, the real value in destinations. And this is what they want. The majority of it has been done through ignorance. Nothing wrong with that. If you don't know something, you just don't know. You just haven't learned it yet. So I think a lot of change is going to happen because it's going to be driven by consumer sentiment. It's going to be a change in the motivations in future. So destinations need to wise up. They have a chance right now to get this together.
Yep.
And that might fall to our advantage. That might fall to WeTech's advantage because we have an amazing team of experts, professors, academics, and what have you, working with us that can build these strategies, that can develop these policies and what have you. So it might sound like I'm selling the organization. I didn't plan COVID-19. It's just happened.
Yep.
But we're in the right space right now, and an organization exists now that can support destinations on this transition period. You know, we keep hearing regeneration and all this kind of stuff. Nothing wrong with that. But really, let's get our ducks in a row. Let's start to understand what's of value. Let's try to understand what differentiates us between everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
There's beaches and palm trees and everything else around the world, but there is nothing like your indigenous culture.
Mm-hmm.
You own that. You're the only
Mm-hmm.
ones who own that.
Mm-hmm.
You need to give it some love.
I totally agree.
You know, so that's what we're about.
Yep. One of the things I know that one of the things for sure that we've noticed too within with our trends and our research and with what we're sort of getting from our sort of polling is internet usage has gone through the roof. Travel is one of the highest searched items right now on the internet. Hence why when people, like you said, people are looking on Google and all these other formats, I'd like to throw in there, they're looking on ehCanadaTravel.com as well, because for the instance that our traffic has gone exponentially huge. We have been forced to come up with new programs like this, which COVID has brought about, because at that time we were more going to the communities and talking. Now we're this format, and now this show has been recognized overseas in your part of the world. For the original content and the way we do it. We're not a suit and tie, as you guess. We're down home real people. We're boots on the ground. And I think what's happening because of the so-called stakeholders, I think what it's given is the opportunity for people to look around and find other sources and other resources that are non-gone ghost and that are looking at different approach to tourism.
I totally agree. And, you know, it's quite interesting. Jed Brown and I, we've known each other for quite a number of years now. But we both started organizations with the same goal. We just came at it in different ways.
Yep.
So I created this organization because of my background and because of the work experience I had and the conference platforms that I had, and also some of the media sort of opportunities. He came at it because he understood that for years we had just concertinaed the year into peak seasons and what have you, and it makes no sense.
No,
you know. So we're coming at it to try and, you know, have better equitable travel, more dispersal. You know, so 365 days a year. With me, history isn't made in one place. History and culture is made all over the places, and it gives greater opportunity for destinations to create dispersal and to do it in the right way. You know, you can now get people off the beaten track, but as long as you work with communities and you ensure that the custodians of these places, these special places, are protected, rewarded, are embraced, give them an opportunity to get emotionally involved in these kind of initiatives and these opportunities, then we will start to steer tourists in a way for them to better appreciate a country, to better appreciate a people, to appreciate food, to appreciate land, you know, which has never really happened before. When you think about it, it's insane what we've been doing and how we've been doing it. No other industry does it like we do it.
No.
So you know, as I say, you know, the likes of Jed and others, we've come at it from different angles, but we're kind of meeting in the middle because our agenda and our objectives and our missions is the same.
And I'm seeing that more and more now with the entrepreneurial aspect, and also with the more of the private side of tourism. I've seen some great initiatives. I've had some good conversations, and I'm really proud of being part of that entrepreneurial side of tourism, because it's satisfying, even though there's a battle consistently in and out every day. But it's very, very satisfying with the feedback you're getting, and with people like yourselves, the initiatives you're doing, and Jed and all the other people that Caroline and Suzanne and so forth. I think it's admirable of what we're trying to accomplish, because it's not only better for our passion, and you could see the passion. I think it's better for the industry itself and for each and every country. I think it's a better outlook. But
it's a new type of leadership.
Yes, it is. It totally is. So what are the strategies moving forward then, Chris, for the COVID-19 with all that's happening? And we've been saying this since we started the show 32 episodes ago, that the old playbook is out. Use it for fire starter, because that ain't going to work. So bring in the new playbook. So what's the new playbook for the World Tourism Association for Culture and Heritage?
Well, we're doing a bunch of things right now. I mean, I think one of the things that's out there, and when you look at social media, there's a lot of assumptions out there. And what we really need, and Carolyn Childs is the master of this, is we need evidence-based factual information that allows us to help build the next steps and the next stages moving forward. So one of the things that we're doing right now as we speak is we're creating what we've called a wisdom bank. And we have some people working with us in the United States, in Utah and California, and they are scraping the internet and having running interviews and surveys so that we can find out what destinations and institutions, it's not just about destinations, it's about, you know, museums, art galleries, etc. What are we doing during COVID-19, and what are our plans post-COVID-19? What have we learned, both good and bad? And what we're trying to do here is we're trying to build a repository of information. As I say, we call it the wisdom bank, which we will give to industry. If we give that to the industry, then they can take a look at what other similar institutions or destinations are doing, and it might save them time and money in learning from others' experience on how to move forward quickly, more effectively, and safely. So Wisdom Bank is already underway. We hope to release the first stages of this probably the second week of December, and we're now working with some corporate partners of WeTech to actually build on this, because we want this to be a living, breathing document, something where we can continue to learn from. And of course, once we're through this pandemic experience, what we're actually creating will become a repository of knowledge for universities and different faculties to pull on, so that our next generation of industry leaders will understand what's gone on, will understand the principles of tourism, will understand the efforts of crisis and resilience. So that so this is just one thing that we're doing. The other thing that we've done recently is we've worked with the University of Technology in Sydney, again with the new leadership of our industry, the master's students who are coming out of there, and we gave them a task. And this was in conjunction with Low Season Traveller. One of the things that I've been on about for years, and so is Jed Brown, is how our industry positions and markets a destination. You know, they might put out a beautiful golden beach with nobody on it, and when you get there's a million people there. or it might be St. Mark's Square in Venice, and there might be one or two people having a coffee, and when you get there, there's 6 cruise liners and all this kind of stuff. again, would you buy a car from these people? I don't think so.
No.
So what we've done is we gave them some scope to try and investigate what consumers want in the future, what experiences they've had, good and bad, how they want destinations to position themselves as a destination in the future. And words pop up like trust. They want to trust destinations. Yes. They don't want to be sold a lemon. They don't want to go to a place that is jam-packed, in a particular time where they're paying 10 times for a coffee, or and this research has literally just landed on the desk 2 days ago, and we're going through it right now. So once we've actually worked with the team, once we've got Carolyn involved as well, and we've polished up the document, we will release that document, because the findings of and the hard work of what these girls from UTS have done, from the university have done, is fantastic. And it actually goes a long way to saying exactly what we're saying, in terms of the industry has been lazy. Yep. We have taken things for granted. We have known that we can fill these gaps between July and August, or whatever our peak seasons are, and we've just lofted our revenues and our success on that. Well, the industry can't do that anymore, and the consumers are not prepared to take it anymore. So we need to change from within if we're going to change at the outside. Yep. So there's a bunch of stuff that we're doing right now. Just one other thing that we're working on, which I won't go into too much detail, but it comes down to the current situation, say with UNESCO. Now, UNESCO do some great work. Don't get me wrong. This is not me beating them up at all. So when you look at World Heritage Sites, and I know that you have some World Heritage Sites in Canada, quite rightly so, but the process of obtaining that World Heritage status is interesting.
That's
the bureaucracy.
Word, Chris. That's a very polite word.
The bureaucracy that sits behind that, the cost involved, the processes. they were for a previous time. Since this, basically the model for this was established, we now have billions of tourists, not a handful. Okay, we have affordable access to places in the world that you could never have even imagined. So we are working on a white paper, because when you look at the volume of UNESCO's World Heritage Sites around the world, and I'll give you an example. Here's a good example. So if we look at Zambia right now, Zambia has one recognized World Heritage place. They have 7 on the consideration list. Okay, and how long these are going to be considered for, time only tells. It could be 1 year, it could be 10 years. Okay, they have more than 4,000 significant cultural heritage sites within Zambia, none of them being recognized.
It could be a money issue, could it?
Or political?
Well, the fact is, we've only had the UNESCO model.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
So we're building a white paper focused on the 99% that's invisible.
Can we not? Why not a WeTAC model?
Well, this is what it is. This is what it is. It's allowing destinations to understand how to index, what the significant values are, how to actually put that together in terms of where the significant is, what the value is to national, regional, local communities, and do it in a completely different way. We're not trying to steal the thunder of UNESCO. Far from it. We want to work in conjunction with UNESCO. Absolutely. But the fact is, the industry's changed. The other thing about UNESCO, and again, not me beating them up, just on observation, is when they create these World Heritage Sites, we have people around the world now that they want to collect them. They want to go to as many World Heritage Sites as they possibly can. But UNESCO's job is finished once they've given that badge. There is no sort of dialogue in terms of how we take this new opportunity and bleed that into the mainstream of tourism. How do we educate the custodians of these precious assets? And what are the models? What are the strategies that need to be put in place to ensure that we can benefit from this recognition in a way that ensures that we're not going to damage or ruin the goose that laid the golden egg? So again, this is not UNESCO's mandate. It's WeTAC's mandate. We're the only organization that is tasked to do this, and we've tasked ourselves to do this. We are for the industry because we're from the industry. So the missing piece of the jigsaw, the missing link, if you will, has been that protection and recognition from UNESCO and how the industry manages that asset. Because they've never been tied together. So that is what we're trying to do. This is why we want to work with UNESCO. But also, we want to recognize, as I say, the 99% of cultural heritage sites that currently remain invisible off the radar.
I like it.
Nice.
Good on you, Chris.
Thank
Good
you.
on your team.
We're working hard on it.
I hope I get a copy of that report. I'd love to read it.
Absolutely.
Yes.
You can appreciate this is in its complexity. It's it's simple in its complexity. There's a lot of moving parts in this.
Yes.
And again, this will be a document that we keep building on because it's going to change. It's fluid. Our industry is fluid. So we estimate hopefully by the end of first quarter or into second quarter of next year because of the work that's being done. But we're working with some academic professors in the US and in Africa and various other places. Perfect. So this is not going to be a document that's pulled together by a bunch of guys around the corner. This is going to be something that has got weight behind it.
It's got boots on the ground. It's got boots on the ground. It's not.
It has, but it's got industry focus too.
That's right.
Something that's always been missing from the past.
Yep. And Susan Kavanaugh saying a big shout out from your neck of the woods. How are you doing,
Suzanne? Good, great to hear from you.
And also a shout out to Tanya, regular viewer. She's also throwing some compliments your way, Chris. So
thank you, Tanya. Very grateful.
So here we come. So what new examples, Chris? Because you're in the know, and we sort of have given you our Canadian version of your new nickname, Mr. History. What new examples and or initiatives are in the pipeline that you're seeing out there around the world that indicates tourism is actually learning something and they're taking a more responsible approach and a leading role, which is what we're lacking in protecting our cultural sites. So what initiatives or what are you seeing or hearing in the pipeline besides with the work what you mentioned with WeTAC? Are you hearing anything else, or is this solely a WeTAC agenda?
Well, that particular one is a WeTAC agenda, absolutely. But one of the things I'm heartened by is, again, some of the work that we're doing and some of the conversations that we're having around the world. And I take my hat off to Carolyn Childs for a lot of this, because when you look at a destination, when you look at when places are broken, and over tourism is the term that we use for that. Yep. When we're just cramming people into these places, it doesn't just destroy the place or the the reputation, but it ruins the experience for everybody, and of course the local communities that call these places home. So the idea of carrying capacity, understanding what you can take before you break, has to be something that whilst we're in this quiet period.
I like that. What you could take. That's a good one.
Will you repeat that, please?
It's what I always say is what you can take before you break. Again, a lot of people think it's never going to happen to us until it creeps up on you, and it happens quickly, and it's driven by it's got multiple facets to this. So when we look at carrying capacity, the analogy that I use, which is quite a simple analogy, is if I'm going to a supermarket, to do some shopping, I'll take a bag with me, and I'll know the bag is big enough because I know what I want to buy, and I can put everything in there. Yeah. Why don't we do that with destinations? Why do we just keep bringing people in and creating opportunities to grow and grow and grow, and not understanding what it is we need to do or how many people we can take before we need to change the way we do things? Yeah. So, for example, it doesn't have to be a country or a major city. This could be a town or a village, and you might understand that you can only take so many people before you need to build a bigger car park. You know what I mean? It's not rocket science, but we are now. And the other thing about this is, it's if you don't know this, how on earth can you actually build a responsible strategy moving forward, or responsible policy? You're just making it up, and we can't make it up anymore. It's got to have evidence and fact base behind it, right? Yep. So we're working with some destinations around the world right now on 2 initiatives in this ilk. So carrying capacity now is starting to be recognized that when we bring people back, we've got social distancing. We need greater dispersal. We've got opportunities with cultural heritage. We've got opportunities with 365 days of the year. But we need to understand what it is and how much it is that we can bring in before we need to change our direction and it's got to have a whole of government approach. In the past, we've only focused on the tourism marketing agency, the NTO or the STO. It's a whole of government approach. We need to understand, the Ministry of Infrastructure, the Ministry of Telecommunications. We need to have power, water. All of these things make up the tourism consumption program, if you will. And if we don't understand what's going to happen when we bring these people in, it's a recipe for failure. And we've seen too much failure in the past. And when it comes to my part of the industry, the protection of culture and heritage, we can't afford to get it wrong. I'm sorry, we just can't. As I said earlier, we can't plant this stuff. Once it's gone, it's finished. It's extinct. So this realization that we need to do a carrying capacity study, plus we need to do a revenue capture study, because a lot of the stuff gets bled out into some of the large global corporations around the world. Not knocking them. Good on you, boys, right? What we want is we want to keep as much revenue in our own destination to benefit our own communities. Yes. And if we're going to disperse, then that revenue needs to build or improve the livelihoods of those people. It needs to improve the socioeconomic conditions of those people. And again, I'm not blaming people. We haven't recognized this in the past as an industry. But as we start to expand and as we start to open up new areas, as we start to disperse visitation, because we have to right now, we've never had to in the past, now we do. Then we need to know carrying capacity, revenue capture straight away, and then we build our plans accordingly. And we can't have 1-year marketing strategies. We need to have minimum 5 years, because we need to understand what's going down the track. So this kind of thing is is what's changing. And the other thing that's changing, and I think people are recognizing it, and I'm absolutely heartened by this, is community engagement. Yep. You see, when we look at cultural heritage tourism, and when we look at what we're trying to achieve, with organizations like WeTech, we're nimble, we're agile. As I said earlier, we don't charge massive fees to become part of our organization. The most expensive fee you'll pay is $150. Yep. And that's because we want to focus on the agenda. We want to focus on the mission, not focus on the benefits and what have you. If that pays our costs, fine. So what we're trying to achieve here is to raise awareness of the need for that community engagement. And if we can bring people along with us for the journey to support our cause and become part of our own community, we will start to make, and we're already starting to make, positive change. We're starting to open some eyes in positive ways, which is a good thing.
Nice.
Did
you, as Caroline or Jed, ever taught you about the program we developed out here called Experience Community?
No, I'm sorry. No.
Yeah, so it's right up about. We developed a smaller rural tourism content marketing program that we just launched, a 18-month pilot project, and then COVID hit, so that sort of put a slit on it. But we got the pilot project. So during COVID, this group that has the program we developed are every single month they've been showing double and triple digit increases, and we've taught them how to develop a whole bunch of different types of content and how to get it on the first page of Google. And it's sort of that sort of thing. So we've given the power back to the community to show their passion, their experience, and their knowledge of their own backyard, opposed to the suit and tie group, which is 300 kilometers away, that haven't even done a trail here. So
it's following this call, I'll send you our codes of conduct and our standards of ethical practice. I built these with two global experts based out of Queensland University, who actually wrote the community policy for ASEAN countries.
Okay.
So they worked with us to build these, and I'll share them with you, because there'll be some sort of similarities and some synergies there that you might be able to take some of our stuff with you. It's something that we give to all our members. And if you want to be a member, you've got to tick the box to say that you're going to follow these things.
Okay.
But we're seeing it. We are seeing some very positive changes. And I'm working on a project with a team in New Zealand, and this is something that we're starting to see change quite quickly, which is great. So there's an area in New Zealand called Milford Sound, which is this stunningly beautiful area, a little bit like Canada, mountains and lakes. And of course, Milford Sound is the colonial name. It was the invaders' name, if you will.
Okay. Yeah.
The real name, the Maori name, now I've got to try and pronounce this right, is Pio Pio Tahahi, right?
Nice.
Now, even just saying that gives it a completely new dimension.
Yes.
It gives it a completely new meaning, right? And what that word stands for, it was the legendary hero Maui died, and he died to build or to give immortality to the Maori people. And when he was buried, the legend says that the Pio Pio bird, this giant bird that's now extinct, was said to fly over his grave to celebrate the immortality of the Maori people. Now, doesn't that sound better than Milford Sound?
Yeah.
Right? So when you step onto that ground, when you get off that bus and you step onto that ground, that sacred ground, you know immediately the power and the significance of that area. And we're starting to find this. And before we came on live, I was saying that one of the examples that we're using as part of the paper that we're writing for the government there, it was the Guarahai people on what was Queen Charlotte Island, right?
Canada.
So we're using the example of changing Queen Charlotte Islands to the Guarahai. And what actually fell out of that, and I want your listeners to check this out online, one of the things that fell out of the conversations that we were having was that the Guarahai people are sailors, nautical people. They've gone as far as Mexico, apparently. But when you look at the totems of the Guarahai people, and when you look at the totems of the Maori people in New Zealand, and when you look at the particular use of the tongue from the warriors, They're the same.
I think that is so
They
cool.
are the same,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
So
you've
what-
got to
that's-
ask yourself, imagine, did the Guadalajara people, are they the first people to cross the Pacific
Yes.
and get to New Zealand?
New history, right? Could be in the
Hey.
making.
Yeah, let's start a story.
We just did.
But check
We
it.
just did.
Check it out. Go online and check it out. It's really quite interesting.
Excellent.
So we're starting to see all this. It's happened with Uluru and Ayers Rock. It's happened with Guadalajara. Hopefully, it'll happen in Milford Sound. So this idea of giving back and giving the names back to the true indigenous, the true owners of the land, I think is significant.
And I think it's actually necessary, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Before we let you go, Chris, is there anything you would like to share with our audience that we might not have covered? Anything passionate? Anything coming down the pipe?
Well, to be perfectly honest with you, what I would like to ask your audience is, whenever you start an organization like WeTech, you get a lot of sleepless nights because you wonder whether you've done the right thing or not.
Yeah.
But I know that we have. We are the only organization out there doing this. So what I would like to share with your audience is, if you can support us, either become a member. Membership starts at $50. Most you'll pay is $150. If not, follow us on LinkedIn or our social media, because the more support we can get, the more positive change we can make. And we can't do that without the industry coming along with us for the ride. And if you can be part of our community, I know that we will support or be able to support your community. So, guys, really, that's all I can say. I think what you've done for us today is given us a platform to share some of our ideas, our experience. And, I'm incredibly grateful for that. So, we'd like to bring you and your audience along for the ride. And let's just see how far we can take this.
Shoot for the moon.
Absolutely.
Well,
that's what it's
thank
about.
you, Chris. It's been an absolute pleasure. I know our audience is going to enjoy this. We'll do our bit to share your message. We will, hopefully, we haven't scared you off, and we can invite you back and give us an update on all the good work that your organization is doing. And we do encourage our listeners to check out the website. We've been putting it up through the whole show. Make sure www.wtach.org. Check it out. Give Chris some kudos, support the good work he's doing. And again, Chris, thank you for coming on our show.
Absolute pleasure. Great. Look forward to the next one.
You got her, big guy. Thank you very much.
See you, buddy.
Bye.
See you now. Cheers.
So, Colin, that was impressive, eh? That was our new good friend, and we're just piling them up, man. I hope they don't all get jealous because we're starting to like everybody here.
Our new buddy.
Mr. History, Chris Flynn. Was just our guest on our show. Make sure that you, if you were as impressed as we are on Chris's passion for history and culture venues around the world, including Canada, please take a time to make a quick look at their wonderful website. And as we have been posting all night, you can follow Chris's story and his very valuable partnerships and his team on Facebook, Twitter, and also on LinkedIn. Pick a format, whatever beats to your heart, and slap that WTACH into the search bar if you haven't got down the addresses, and give them a follow and give them a like. And that's just like giving Chris a pat back for the hard work that he does. So by all means, we encourage all you Canadians, get off the couch, put the Netflix remote away, and get on that internet and go click WTACH.org. So for you all today, we have to finish our show. We've got something that's pretty cool to talk about. We received a letter today, and we're pretty stoked on the big plans that we've got coming up. But before we get there, I just want to make sure everyone knows this is the ehTravel Talk Show. We are a tourism and marketing travel organization. Some of our flagship projects, of course, is our award-winning ehCanadaTravel.com, 18,000 pages of travel information, 16,000, and it's the only interactive website here in Canada. Also, please take the time to check us out. Our Two Brothers, 2 Feet, 2 Cures, 2 Canadian blog, which is ranked in the top 1,000 travel bloggers. Of course, this show, which you all love and dear and attune to every week. And of
Wouldn't
course,
miss it.
Yeah. And of course, our last but not least, our flagship project, which we just developed, was our small and rural community experience program. Learn how to market your community, take back your marketing, and start establishing your own brand on what you think works and what you would like to promote. So this is another interesting. We have some big news to share. So I'm just going to pull up this letter we received today, and I'm going to stick it up online here, and I'm going to solo it so you guys can see it, and then I'm going to read it to you. We got this, and we're not sure how we got this. Did we, Junior?
No, I think we just we're being very good this year.
I guess. So what happened was, it's pretty cool. So we're sitting here and we got a letter from the North Pole Mail Delivery, and I'm just going to read it to you so you can hear what happened. This says, "Dear A Travel Talk Show, I was looking at my nice list a while ago and was so impressed at your efforts to bring good cheer into the homes of Canadians this year, in what has proven to be a very difficult year for keeping off the naughty list. Mrs. Claus has been reading the letters you have been writing all of us on behalf of all the children in Canada, and how they miss meeting with me, Santa, as I cannot do my rounds at the shopping malls due to COVID-19. Mrs. Claus and I are so grateful that your team has offered your A Travel Talk Show format as an opportunity for us to speak to Canadian children. After some consideration, Mrs. Claus, myself, the elves, and the reindeer have all decided to grant you and your merry band of Canadian elves and elfettes an exclusive interview, as well as some additional airtime for Canadian children to connect with all of us at the North Pole through your talk show before the big night when I go out and deliver gifts. May the true spirit of the season be upon you, your family, your fans, and your followers. Merry Christmas. Sincerely signed, Santa Claus. P.S. Thank you for your wonderful website, ehCanadaTravel.com, as it was proven very handy when delivering gifts in Canada." That is from, oh my God!
No way!
No way! That is from the big man himself. So basically, after all our efforts,
huge,
of tracking down that North Pole, the famous, the number one most traveled person, in the world, who has put on the most kilometers, has granted us here at the A Travel Talk Show exclusive rights for an interview with the North Pole with Santa, Mrs. Claus, some elves, and we might even get a surprise appearance by Rudolph if he's not too busy. So I was pretty stoked, Colin.
That is exciting. I won't be able to sleep now.
Where else?
Down to Christmas.
CBC, Global TV, eat your heart out. We here at A Canada Travel have the rights to an interview with the big man himself, Mr. Claus, and his beautiful, and we all know who runs the show, Mrs. Claus.
Yes.
Will be there with us. So stay tuned next week, because we are getting a cable from the North Pole with a little note video message from Santa and Mrs. Claus themselves that we'll be sharing next week. And then we shall have the big show where we are one-on-one with the big man, Santa, and Mrs. Claus. So stay tuned. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, and YouTube, because you know what? The big man, if you want to talk to him and you live in Canada, you need to stay tuned, because you are going to, and we will be putting up an email that Santa has given us that we are going to use for our exclusive interview. And for you, the children, get ready, get your videos ready, get your photos ready, get your emails ready, because when we open up this Santa mailbox that we are been given, and you have to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, or YouTube to find this email. Start sending your stuff, and you may be, you watching right now, you little Johnny and little Jane, you may be lucky enough to get a one-on-one with Santa Claus from the North Pole.
Wow. Are we eligible to enter this, or is it just
we've had a lot of big wigs like Mr. History on this show, Colin, but I gotta tell you, Santa, I'm a little bit nervous. He's like the biggest wig of all.
Well, he was trying to pull some strings behind the scenes there to get the backstage pass.
I know. So stay tuned. North Pole is coming up in a couple of weeks. We are getting our act together, and I still don't know how we got this letter. I wonder if a little elf dropped it off or how it got here.
I don't know. Maybe it's something.
What's that?
Maybe it's our Arctic Circle trip. Maybe he visited,
Yeah, well,
dropped it off.
I'm just glad Santa picked our show to do his interview and not the CBCs of the world, all those ones. He picked the ehCanadaTravel. I guess he might like the crazy Canucks that run this joint. I think that might be it because we are on the nice list. He said.
And we can be infectious. So, we're on the nice list so far. We've been good boys this year.
Yep. So stay tuned when we bring the big man in for an interview, and we're going to have some lucky children from around Canada are going to be able to have a one-on-one with the big man and Mrs. Claus at the North Pole. So get your pencils ready. Start making your videos. Get that photo. Get all that good, juicy stuff ready so you little Johnny and little Jane can talk to Santa and Mrs. Claus. Thank you for tuning in to Canada's #1 tourism and travel show. Number numero, Junior and I. We will see you next week, same time, same place, 7 p.m. PST, right here on the ehCanadaTravel.com Facebook page. And again, a big thank you to Mr. History, Chris Flynn. This is Greg. That's Colin. Canada out.
Peace out.